Hello everyone, I am Nikki. I am walking around the Recoleta neighborhood in Buenos Aires. I actually lived in Buenos Aires in 2005, and last week I came back after 16 years away. Now, I knew that, of course, things had changed since the last time I was here, especially with COVID, so I started to look online and try to find out what information I needed to come back. I checked blog posts, I checked Facebook posts, forums, government websites, and honestly, it was really hard to get everything all in one place and make a complete picture. So I am going to walk around the Recoleta neighborhood today and put all of the information all in one place, so hopefully it can help you out having everything together. What are the requirements to enter Argentina? Obviously, with the addition of COVID in our lives, things are slightly more complicated, but still totally doable. To enter Argentina, you have to be vaccinated. You have to show your negative PCR test results, and you must take the PCR test at least 72 hours before the departure, not the arrival, but the departure. You also have to fill out the Declaración Judicial. Your airlines should send you this, but basically you just fill out your information, you'll get an email, and then it has a PDF at the bottom that you'll show them. You also have to have insurance. I used Safety Wing. You have to have proof of leaving the country, so another plane ticket out. You have to get a PCR test 3 to 5 days after you arrive in the country. Now here's the things that I was actually asked by American Airlines at the counter when I checked in. My passport, my vaccination cards, my negative PCR test results, insurance, and the PDF of the Declaración Judicial. They asked if I had an exit flight, but they didn't care about seeing the proof of it, so I didn't show. Here's what they actually asked for in Argentina when I arrived. They asked for passport, vaccination cards, and negative PCR test results, and that's it, nothing else. The only place that I saw you had to get a PCR test after arriving was on a government website and on Facebook. However, when I arrived, nobody said anything, nobody checked up on me, no one mentioned it at all. And I will link below a website where you can make an appointment or a turno. When you go to get the test, it's at a location called La Rural, which is in Palermo, next to Plaza Italia. You just go, you show your appointment time and wait in line. It took me about 20 minutes. Just make sure that when you register at La Rural that you use your WhatsApp number, because you will have to send them a message from that number to get your test results back. So make sure it's the same number. Great, so now you're in the country. How do you get from the airport to the city? There are a few ways. What I did was hire a private car, and it cost me around, well, exactly $25 US. I had to pay in US dollars in cash when I arrived. I made this connection actually from posting on Facebook about it and getting connected that way. We communicated via WhatsApp, and he even sent me his official ID, so I knew he was legit and everything was totally fine. There are other ways though to get to the city. The cheapest way, of course, is the city bus. Bus number 8 goes directly from Ezeiza Airport to Plaza de Mayo. However, it takes about an hour and a half to 2 hours, but the price is less than $1 US. So it's the cheapest option, but also takes the longest amount of time. And then once you arrive to Plaza de Mayo, you're gonna have to take another transportation anyways, whether that's a taxi, a subte, or a bus to get to where you're staying. The other option is apps. Uber works here, as does BA Taxi, DD, and Cabify, though to be honest, I haven't been able to use Cabify because I don't have the DNI, the national ID number. I will link the website down below, but there's also an app, so you can reserve either a remis, which is like a van, or a bus to take you into town, so that's also an option. Personally, I think the easiest thing to do is to hire a private car. That way, as soon as you arrive, you're tired, and maybe you have a ton of cash with you, you're gonna wanna go from the airport right to your front door. So I personally think that just paying a little bit more right away saves you a lot of time and stress. If you are coming to Buenos Aires, then you are probably also wondering, where should I stay in Buenos Aires? There are a lot of really great neighborhoods, so I'm just going to list a few and say a few traits about them so you have a better idea of where you might want to stay. Palermo Soho is one of the more popular areas with foreigners. There are tons of cafes, bars, restaurants. There's an active nightlife, and this tends to be where most of the foreigners hang out and have meetups. If I were to do it again, I would probably choose Palermo Soho to stay. Belgrano is a neighborhood that's not too far away from Palermo either. Overall, I think most people consider it to be pretty safe. Belgrano also has the Barrio Chino, so they have a ton of Asian shops. So if you like to get Asian food, that's the place to do it. Recoleta is the neighborhood that I'm walking around in today. It is more of a wealthy neighborhood, but it's right near the cemetery, and there's really nice restaurants and bars and cafes all around. The Microcentro is like the mini downtown of the city. It's close to where Plaza de Mayo is, and Calle Florida runs through there as well. It's going to be a lot more of a busy area. Transportation is really convenient because all of the subway stations come through that area. San Telmo is considered to be more of a bohemian area of Buenos Aires. In 2005, when I was here, it seemed to have a lot more going on. These days, when I walk the streets, it seems a little bit more dead. But they do have a market on Sundays in Plaza Dorrego, which is still quite cool. Not far from San Telmo, you can find La Boca. La Boca is the home to Boca Juniors, where Maradona played. It tends to be more on the touristy side. You can see tango in the streets. There's markets, restaurants, cafes, all a little bit overpriced. There's not really any subte station that goes right to La Boca, but there are a lot of bus stops. Balvanera is the area that I'm staying in now. More of a residential neighborhood. There are not too many places for nightlife. There are no bars. But there are restaurants, a few cafes, there are supermarkets, it has everything I need. It's just a bit more residential. Almagro and Caballito are two neighborhoods that are a little bit overlooked, actually. They both have really nice parks in them. They're residential. The streets feel peaceful when you walk around. There's everything that you need there, and they're both close to subte stations and several bus stops. Via Crespo is considered to be a new up-and-coming neighborhood. It's between Caballito and Palermo, so it's close enough to either one. And it does feel a bit more on the younger side, and maybe that's because it's so close to Palermo. There's also the neighborhood of Puerto Madero. You can find restaurants and bars. There's even bars on the water. And there's just a lot of businesses and offices and big banks over there. I don't know that there's a lot of residential housing there, but it's possible. It's a great place to walk around, but it is a little bit far from everything else. So now that you know about each neighborhood, you're probably wondering, how do I find an apartment? So there are a few websites that I have found during my research that you can try, and I will link them down below. One is Zona Prop, and one is Alternativa. I'm not advocating for or against these. They're just websites that I know exist and other people have used. I didn't personally use them, so you'll need to just look into it on your own, but it's likely you might have to pay a commission fee, and you'll probably have to sign a contract and pay a deposit. Usually when I come to a new city, when I'm traveling, the first place I look is Airbnb, but it kind of seems like Airbnb is not actually that used here in Buenos Aires. I had contacted like 4 hosts on Airbnb, and they never responded. Airbnb in Buenos Aires doesn't seem to be the best route. So honestly, the best thing that I found so far for finding apartments is Facebook. On the Buenos Aires Expat Hub Facebook group, I searched for housing to see what people had already said, and then I made my own post and mentioned kind of the area that I was looking for. I got a ton of messages, people offering their own apartments that are for rent, or they know of apartments that are for rent. So it seems that the best way is through word of mouth. Don't be shy and make a post on that Facebook group and see what comes out of it. One of the easiest things to do here was get a SIM card. I went to Claro, I grabbed a ticket, I waited like 10 minutes, and in just a few minutes later, I had my SIM card. It cost 1,200 pesos for 30 days for 10 gigs. It was super easy. I just ordered café con leche with 3 media lunas. In 2022, the average for that is like 360 pesos. So in comparison, I paid 360 pesos a month in rent in 2005. Obviously, inflation is a major thing here. There are two official rates. There's one rate, which is the red rate, which is the oficial. It's the government rate, it's the rate you'll get at banks, it's the rate that you'll get if you take money out of the ATM. It is the rate that you'll get if you pay with a credit card. And this rate is a bummer. You do not want this rate. As of today, the official red rate is $1 to 104 pesos. The other rate is the blue rate. The blue rate as of today is $1 to around 218 pesos. So you can see that you're almost doubling your money by using the blue rate. This is the rate you want. This is like the black market rate, the común rate, what everyone wants. How do you get the blue rate? There are two ways. The first way is the Western Union, which I personally think is the easiest way, and that's because you just create an account online, use the promo fee Digital Zero fee, and I'll post that down below. But create an account, link your bank account, then select you want to send money to Argentina. Once you arrive, you can go to any branch of the Western Union, show your passport, make sure the name that you put electronically on your account matches exactly what your passport is. And then when you arrive, you just bring your passport to any Western Union branch. Oh, you also have to show like a receipt number. And when you show your receipt number and your passport, then they'll give you the money in the blue rate. The second option is that you can exchange at a cueva. Cueva literally means cave. So you can exchange there. You can also go to Florida Street, Calle Florida, and you hear men saying cambio, cambio, cambio. So you can exchange with them as well and you'll get the blue rate. Now, most people say arrive first, get to know some people, some local people. They'll tell you where the best cuevas are to exchange. I have also heard that you can exchange money at a chino. Chino is a small market that is owned by Chinese people, and that is what they call it in Argentina. They call it a chino. But if you go to one of these markets, apparently they are usually willing to exchange with you as well on the blue rate, but it's better if you get to know them first. So go into the same one a couple times, and then maybe once they know who you are, you can ask them if they exchange on the blue dollar, and they'll do that for you. It is so easy now more than ever to make friends and meet people in Buenos Aires. Even if you're just here for a week and you want to meet up with people, have a drink, it's very easy. When I was here in 2005, I met people on Craigslist. I had just created a MySpace account, and now it's completely different. WhatsApp groups here are super active. There is something going on every single night. There are groups for sports, for basketball, for rugby, for meetups, for tango, for music, literally anything you could ever be interested in, there's a WhatsApp group. So I will link some of them below, but also go ahead and ask on the Facebook expat page, and someone will be more than willing to provide you with the link. The transportation in Buenos Aires is great. For some reason, I have this weird fear of taking buses in other cities and stick to the subway. In Buenos Aires, however, I feel that the buses are actually a lot easier to use. The buses are called colectivos, and the metro or underground is called subte, short for subterráneo, underground. The subte costs 30 pesos. The bus, it depends on the price, it depends on where you're going. When you get on the bus, you tell the driver where you're going, they tap a little button, you hold your card on the scanner until there's a green check mark, and then you'll see how much they've charged you. Could be 15 pesos, could be 18 pesos, could be 21 pesos. It really depends on where you're going. So now that Google Maps is a thing, it is super easy to get around the city. You just put it in your phone, it tells you exactly which train and which bus and which subte to take. So the first thing you'll want to do for yourself is get the Sube card. It's a little blue card that you can get from any subte station or a kiosco where it has the blue Sube sign. It costs just 90 pesos, and then you just add money on top of that. You do something called recarga. You can do a recarga in any kiosco with the blue Sube sign. You can also do it in any subte station. There's a machine that says recarga. You just put your card on the scanner, you put your money in, tap the screen, and within a couple seconds you're recharged. It's as easy as that. I'm here in Recoleta Cemetery where Eva Perón is buried, and I want to talk a little bit about safety in Buenos Aires. Honestly, I really don't like classifying cities as safe or dangerous because I think it's really subjective. but it is something that people always ask about. So I will mention just a couple of things. Like any big city, you have to be aware and be smart. Don't carry your cell phone around in the street. Wear your backpack on the front instead of the back, and you'll see a lot of local porteños, Argentinians doing that as well. So one thing that people ask is the water safe to drink? I have heard both answers, yes and no. In general, I think people buy water. I just buy those big jugs and keep them in my house. Although I do brush my teeth with the water, I use it to cook. And in general, I think it is safe, but just to be on the safer side, I buy those big bottles of water to keep in my apartment. As far as other safety concerns go, just be smart, but I will tell you about two things that I have heard so far. One is that a girl was using her cell phone in the street. A guy on a motorcycle drove up onto the curb, grabbed the cell phone out of her hands, and just kept going. And there was absolutely nothing she could do. She just kind of stood there in completely stunned. The second thing is that a girl was walking on Plaza de Mayo. She had her backpack, it had her laptop, it had her cell phone. Suddenly she felt dirty water falling on her from one of the balconies above. And a couple guys rushed over to help her, or so it seemed. And in that mix of chaos, they grabbed her backpack and they took off running, so she lost everything. I don't want to say Argentina is safe or dangerous. I personally haven't had any issues walking down the street. I haven't felt scared. I felt really comfortable. But as a general rule, just treat it like you would any other big city like New York or LA or Rome or wherever. If you found this video helpful, I would appreciate it so much if you gave me a like, subscribe down below so that you can see future videos of Argentina. Why not?